Hi, I'm Benji Hardy. I've got your news headlines for Wednesday, February 3rd. We'll start with a piece of local news. Early voting began yesterday on a local election on a bond issue to make improvements to the Arkansas Art Center in MacArthur Park. A portion of the proceeds would also go to the MacArthur Museum of Arkansas Military History and to the park itself. The bonds would produce around $37.5 million, most of which would be dedicated to the Art Center, and it would be paid off by 2 new cents added to the hotel tax by the Little Rock City Board of Directors in December. To be clear, the tax itself has already been approved by the Board of Directors. Voters will only be voting on whether to dedicate it to the Art Center improvement. Although early voting began yesterday, polls opened citywide on February 9th, which is this coming Tuesday. 3 of Arkansas's 4 congressmen and both senators signed an amicus brief backing the anti-abortion law passed in Texas in 2013, which is right now being challenged before the U.S. Supreme Court. The Texas law is designed to shut down more than 3/4 of all women's health clinics in the state providing abortion services by demanding that doctors get admitting privileges at nearby hospitals, among other things. A law in Arkansas that's currently under a temporary restraining order by a federal judge would impose similar admitting privilege requirements on clinics. Congressman Steve Womack, French Hill, and Bruce Westerman were the signatories, along with Senators Tom Cotton and John Bozeman, and numerous other Republican lawmakers. Moving on, the federal utility for Little Rock and the water utility for Little Rock and surrounding cities has sent a letter to a federal regulatory agency urging it to stand firm on proposed sanctions to ExxonMobil related to the 2013 oil pipeline spill in Mayflower. Central Arkansas Water wrote the Federal Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration to say that ExxonMobil, which operated the ruptured Pegasus pipeline, should face consequences for the disaster, which occurred about 3 years ago this March. A little background on this. The Federal Pipeline Regulatory Agency imposed a relatively modest fine of about $2.6 million on Exxon last fall, saying that the oil company had violated safety and inspection rules regarding its upkeep of the Pegasus pipeline. And the agency also required Exxon to change certain risk management practices, especially related to the type of pipe that comprised the Mayflower portion of the Pegasus. In short, the regulator said that Exxon needed to be doing a better job monitoring the integrity of that kind of pipe. Exxon appealed the ruling, though, and the regulatory agency has yet to make a final determination. Central Arkansas Water warned in its letter that if the Pegasus or other lines built with similar pipe are operated without a change to safety rules, quote, it is just a matter of time until another in-service rupture occurs. The Mayflower oil spill occurred only a few miles north of the Lake Maumelle watershed, which CAW safeguards its main drinking water supply, and the pipeline has remained turned off since the 2013 spill. Now that Mike Huckabee is out of the race for president, we're watching to see who Arkansas's elected officials will be endorsing instead. The rumor is that most support will shift to Marco Rubio, who many Republicans see as the best chance to beat Ted Cruz or Donald Trump in the primary election. Today, 2 Arkansas congressmen, Rick Crawford and Steve Womack, announced they are endorsing Rubio. Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin did the same. There's no word yet from Governor Asa Hutchinson yet about who he might endorse, but for what it's worth, 2 of his nephews in the state Senate, Jeremy Hutchinson and Jim Hendren, are backing Rubio along with a lot of other Republicans in the state legislature. And finally, speaking of presidential politics, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul has dropped his bid for the GOP nomination. Only about a year ago, Rand Paul was seen as one of the most formidable figures in the GOP, but his libertarian accented campaign failed to gain much momentum this season. For those of us on the liberal side of the aisle, we'll miss what Paul brought to the debate. Although he's a staunch believer in libertarian economic policies, he also argued consistently for defending civil liberties and for wanting to see reforms to the criminal justice system, thus reaching out to people of color in a way that few other Republican candidates have. And Paul was critical of increased military engagements overseas and questioned his fellow candidates about their aggressive foreign policy stances. Because he's simultaneously running for re-election for his Senate seat in Kentucky, Paul will be heading back home to campaign there instead. That's all for today. We'll be back tomorrow.